And Gavin's available for pictures too, just in case. That's legit.
I have said that South by Southwest is one of the most important technology shows of the year. And the reason for this is because it puts technology in context and it opens up the discussion about the implications of the technologies that we're implementing. As organizations are increasingly becoming IT-centric, the role of technology within an organization is shifting. And there's a power shift that's happening that's changing the dynamic between infrastructure teams and the line of business. Lines of business are dictating technology now. And technologists need to understand that. And in order to understand that, they need to understand the context in which the technology they're deploying is operating. And because of this shift, a lot of the technology is ending up closer to the consumer. So technology folks need to have a better understanding of the end user as well. And South by Southwest brings all of that together in one place. And the other thing that's really cool about South by Southwest is it makes evident these intersectional opportunities where aspects of different technology can come together to make something greater than the sum of its parts. Now, as I've mentioned before, I did a tremendous amount of walking each day at South by Southwest. 16,500 some odd steps, and 6.5 miles was kind of average for what I was doing. Were it not for those scooters, I would not have been able to get from session to session as fast as I could, so I was able to attend more sessions this year than previously. Before I get into the sessions, I want to talk about one more company that was outside in a lot, and this was Hyper Sciences. For those of you in the data center infrastructure space, this company had some interesting technology. When you're building facilities, there's a lot of horizontal boring for electrical lines and fiber conduits. This company is making that cheaper and faster. So they launch these projectiles into the ground and basically blast a tunnel through the ground. A lot of it's for the gas and oil business, but these technologies can be used for horizontal boring. They come in different sizes, all the way from about 3-inch bore to about a foot diameter. Depending on the size of the bore you need, you can use different projectiles. Hyper Sciences launches these projectiles at about Mach 4, so they must be really loud when they go off. They seem to be able to penetrate a lot of earth and make holes really fast. Another area where this could be really interesting for data center facilities is if you're doing geothermal cooling, you could use these to drill your boreholes for your geothermal cooling. If you're in the business of building facilities, this might be something you want to take a look at. There were a ton of sessions, I believe over 2,000 different sessions. With nearly 500,000 people descending on the city, a lot of these had huge lines. There's a lot of political discussions around technology this year. You had a lot of politicians show up. Beto O'Rourke, Stacey Abrams, John Boehner was there pitching weed. There's Pete Buttigieg, the mayor from Indiana. Howard Schultz was there. Elizabeth Warren was there at Austin City Limits, and she was there right after announcing her plans to break up large tech. So that was an anticipated session. But by far, the most popular session at South by Southwest this year was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was in the biggest room, and her line was the longest of any of them. It wrapped all the way around the convention center, up the stairs, around the convention center again, out the door, across a bridge to the Hilton. It wrapped around the Hilton again, up and down stairs, and filled up 3 or 4 different overflow rooms. It was a really packed showing. She spent a lot of time talking about the social issues of our technology, and even Bill Nye, the science guy, was there to ask her a question. Then there were the more wacky political statements, like this guy who was there trying to get the workers of some of these large technology companies to confess their sins in this portable confession booth that he had been dragging around. The sessions were packed, and some of the sessions were hard to get into, especially some of the keynote sessions. So there was a session by Amy Webb, founder of the Future Today Institute. She had a discussion about a lot of future-related topics, but one of the things that she said that was really interesting to me was that she didn't place AI as part of a trend because it's so pervasive and appears in every aspect of the future report that it didn't necessarily need to be called out as an individual thing, but it is just a generalized meta trend that is showing up in every aspect of her future predictions. So the folks from Karmarama and The Drum were there to participate in an AI moderated debate. Now this is a really interesting idea because the AI was using natural language processing to look at the semantic nature of the conversation and determine determine the tone and the mood of the speakers and run a real-time fact check against the content of the conversation. Now, I will say it didn't really work. The AI was not getting it right, but it was interesting to see the metrics and the statistics being displayed as this debate was happening. It shows a lot of potential for injecting really useful information into debates. There was a lot of discussion around AI in general. One of the big topics was the implications of bias in AI and how to manage that. But another aspect of it was the societal impact of AI. When AI comes in and displaces a lot of workers from their jobs, what's the impact of that on society and how do we address that? And the general consensus was that we're going to need some redistributive economic policies to make up for the displacement of workers from AI.
It's a good thing that more value is being created as long as we can figure out how to distribute that greater wealth in a way that sustains society and doesn't lead to revolution.
There's also a lot of debate about how soon we're going to see some of these technologies. For example, there's a lot of discussion about the fact that AIs are really good at solving complex problems, like complex math problems or playing chess, but interacting with the physical world is where AI struggles the most. The things that are the simplest for humans are often the most challenging for machines. Another great thing at South by Southwest are the pitch sessions, where startups get an opportunity to give a quick pitch about their company. And the topics ranged from artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, blockchain, enterprise and smart data, entertainment and content, health and wearables, hyper-connected communities, social and cultural, sports and performance, and transportation. So I sat in on the enterprise and smart data pitch session. There's a couple interesting companies that I wanted to point out. Geospisa Swift is a company that integrates disaster data with open source geospatial mapping data to help enable relief efforts. This technology is obviously important to first responders, but I could see this also being very relevant to companies like insurance companies who need to explore claims data or who need to react faster to natural disasters. Molecula was an interesting company that's trying to solve for some of the challenges around data science by providing that as a service. Osano has an interesting concept. It's very hard to understand the privacy statements of a lot of these websites and companies. They go through and evaluate all the privacy policies of these companies, and they distill that into a very understandable format so that you understand the rights that you're giving up. But by far, the coolest thing I saw was TransferFi. Now, what TransferFi does is they deliver power over the air at about a 25-meter distance. One of the challenges in a data center is you have a lot of sensors in a data center that deliver critical operational information. Empowering these devices can always be a challenge because some of these data centers run on 220 or they've got DC power, and power to a lot of these sensors is kind of an afterthought. With low-powered chips, this technology has the potential to enable power to those devices without having to run a lot of cabling. One of the greatest limiting factors we have in technology today is caused by battery technology. Delivering power over the air has the potential to help offset some of those challenges. In fact, some of Apple's patents came to light around this, where they had a monitor that provides over-the-air power to devices on your desktop in front of that monitor. So this technology delivers radio frequencies that are used to create induction currents to supply power. They have some interesting proprietary algorithms and techniques for making this effective over distances without causing trouble to a lot of other devices that may be impacted by high levels of RF. There were other sessions that were focused more on health and well-being that I found very relevant, like this session on what the F is wrong with my teenager, because I have a 13-year-old daughter and I'm trying to figure that out myself. To give you the TLDR on this, there are three main things that came out of a lot of their research. Number one was disagree without being disagreeable. Teenagers are very respect-driven, so affording them that respect enables your conversation. Number two, don't be a wet blanket. When a teenager has something they're excited about, accept it without judgment. For example, if your daughter shows up and she says, "I've got a new boyfriend," your first response shouldn't be, "Well, I hope he doesn't get you pregnant." And number three was, don't escalate. I can't tell you how many times a simple discussion in our house escalates into a massive argument. Another central theme at South by Southwest was the shifting nature of marketing. Traditional modes of marketing are no longer effective. One of the most effective channels of marketing is around influencers. And this isn't just the Kim Kardashians of the world. A lot of the focus was around micro-influencers. They have have a very specific market that they address. And this is a way for companies and brands to effectively target their message to a very specific audience. So another area that was really big at South by Southwest was around XR. Now, XR consists of several different things: real reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality. And all this gets wrapped under the label XR. There was an interesting activation at one of the hotels that featured a lot of VR content. They were demonstrating a lot of original content, virtual reality movies, and virtual experiences. It was a couple days wait just to get in on some of these. And then there was the world's saddest disco, a VR-based disco. Maybe what was happening inside their VR headsets was really exciting, but this looked very sad to me. So that's it for this one. In part 3, I'm going to be showcasing some of the companies that were out on the trade show floor and that were in the startup exposition. But until then, I'm going to leave you with this little musical interlude from Snaps for Sinners.
I found her doorstep, I found her shoes and found her kin. They told me the over now I'm pouring whiskey on the stove that marks my lost end down. Without the fairy tale and seeing her funeral. Yeah, she said, kiss me and Lord, I listen, but I haven't gone back since. So when I curse tonight for building a proper thing, I said I curse tonight for building a proper thing.
Hey folks, we're Snaps for Sinners from Santa Rosa, California. This is our mighty fine trio: Michael Fio to my left, and further to my left, Corwin Seeley. Further